Hi, I'm Mike Gardina with GardinaLifeCoaching.com, and have you ever made a huge mistake, something even very, very public? Well, I'm a huge sports fan, and in the first round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament, well, I guess technically it's considered the second round with the play-in game, but I'm still going to call it the first round. There was a game between Virginia and Furman, and Virginia, who was well favored. I forget the rankings of the teams, but they were well favored, and they lost the game effectively on a play at the end where a very senior basketball player made a gross error. And I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to get into any more embarrassment that he already has. But I wanted to kind of bring to light that we all make mistakes, and even though that this young man made a huge mistake at the end of a game that likely cost them the game and continue on through the tournament, it's going to be difficult for him to kind of come back from that. But we all have to come back from those things. Unfortunately, it's a difficult situation. Here's a snippet of the game to see the play that I'm actually talking about.
Ball against the pressure you're going to see is the most important thing here. Get it in cleanly, handle the initial trap that you're going to get, and then make free throws if you force them to foul.
The Cavaliers are playing with four guards, and the four guards out there, along with Cedric, are their best free throw shooter.
Clark in a straight check.
Oh, he didn't need to do that!
He threw it away. Hitting Pegues.
So as you can see, he was kind of trapped there at the end line, and in the desperation, he just throws the ball away at the other end of the court. And unfortunately, that's just a mistake that you learn in high school, even sometimes in middle school. That's not something that you do. But he panicked. It's the end of the game. The game is on the line. He's trapped, and he made a very poor decision. And unfortunately, this happens a lot. And again, in sports especially, where quarterbacks throw an interception at the last point of the game, or coaches call out the wrong play and this doesn't get executed properly. You can go back into history and find all kinds of situations that are similar to this, that were just bad decisions were made and the outcome of the game was completely changed by that decision, even all the way up to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's been known that some coaches have made some gross errors that have cost them the Super Bowl. So it's a common problem that's out there. But we, as just the average citizens out there who don't get that opportunity to be on a stage like that, we make mistakes. We make mistakes. I know me personally make mistakes all the time. But I did want to share with, I guess, a somewhat public mistake that I made many years ago. I'm also an engineer, and as a young engineer, I was in charge of designing a parking deck slab, which has steel support beams for it. And I had made a gross error in the calculation where during the installation of that slab, the steel beam started to excessively deflect, and the guys that were installing the concrete felt that deflection and stopped it, thank God. And basically, as we went through the numbers, that it was going to fail, and someone could have got hurt, hopefully not killed, but someone could have at least got severely injured with that situation. But they were perceptive enough to stop it before it got too bad. But the first thing I had to do was to kind of figure out a solution on how to not necessarily fix the problem, because what was done, but to make it as best I could possibly do. Although my mistake wasn't so public, like I was mentioning earlier about the basketball player for Virginia, but it was public enough for me because everybody associated with the project knew the situation and knew what had happened and knew I was at fault for the most part, and it ended up costing the firm I was working for at the time, I think it was around $25,000 to fix the problem. And it's something I didn't take lightly. So obviously had to pick up and learn from it. So now that we feel like we've crawled into a hole and want to just disappear, how do we get past it? Because we have to get past this. If we don't, our life is over. Well, we don't want that to be the case. So we have to take some steps to get over it. And the first thing that we need to do is to be honest with ourselves. That realize and face, what did we do? What mistake did we make? And how did it affect other people? And what's the result of it? But we have to be honest with ourselves and not just say it's not us. We didn't make that mistake. It was blame it on somebody else. We don't want to do that. And the next step would be to fix it as best you can. Not all things can be fixed. For instance, the Virginia player, he can't fix that mistake. It's done. It's over with. The game is over. It's over. But there's lots of situations when we make mistakes that we can fix it, or at least make it as best we can, make the best out of a bad situation. Like in my case, I had to design a column to be put directly underneath the steel beam to make it self-supporting. The owner wasn't too happy with it, and it looks terrible, but it solved the problem, at least from that perspective, made it safe. So not everybody will be happy with your solution, but you got to do the best you can to make an attempt to make the best of it, to make it correct. We also have to take the time to grieve. We lose something of ourselves when those events happen. We're out there, we feel so guilty. We lost something, and we have to grieve that loss. We have to grieve that embarrassment that we went through, and give yourself the time to get through it properly and let yourself heal. Now, this was probably the most difficult one that we all have, is to learn to forgive yourself. It's such an event, especially such a big public event. It's so hard to forgive yourself. We wear that burden. We just keep that burden on our back, and we carry it as baggage to the rest of our life. And we want that to not define us, but it almost does define us the longer we carry that with us. But you got to forgive yourself, because there's not a soul out there that doesn't make a mistake. Now, obviously, some make bigger mistakes than others, but we all make mistakes. We're all human, and you got to learn to forgive yourself. That you're going to do the best you can to move forward and make up as best you can from it, but you got to forgive yourself in order to move on. And anytime we make a mistake, we have to put it in perspective of what it is. Even going back to the Virginia basketball player, it's like, wow, he was in a situation where the whole world is watching. The game is extremely tight, and he's in a pressure-packed situation. And when you're in a pressure situation, making an error is so easy. And I know even with us in our daily lives, when the day is where we're under pressure for the day, and it's so easy to make a bad decision, because people are yelling at you, your boss is screaming at you, the kids are yelling, and you're supposed to be late for something, and it's so easy to make a quick error. So you got to put everything into perspective, that you're trying to do the best you can, but you made an error, and you just got to understand that. And then the last thing we have to do to get over it is to essentially learn from it. A mistake is really not a mistake if we can learn from it. Again, some mistakes are bigger than others, but still, the ramifications of that mistake, we learn from them. Even the basketball player, he can't fix anything. He's going to learn to be a better basketball player, but more importantly, probably a better human being for it, because he's going through this process. It's going to toughen him up. It's going to create a situation for him to learn from it. But we've got to learn from it, and we have to get back in the game. So many of us, we have a big mistake, and it's like, okay, yeah, I learned I don't want to do that anymore. I'm just going to go over here and do this now. Well, you got to get back in the game, because you're going to have fear for that event to happen again. So the best thing I can tell you is, no matter what it is you got to get out and back in the public, or get out wherever the mistake was that you made, is get out with it, get out in front of it again, and basically like get back on the horse again. It's going to make you go easier into the rest of your life if you learn to do that kind of stuff, as opposed to just pushing it aside and moving in a completely different direction, because you need to have a little bit of closure there that, hey, I can still do this. I'm not that terrible. So thanks for watching today. I really appreciate it. And again, I don't want to bring more attention to the basketball player, but I thought it was a good situation to kind of bring up so we can all learn from it. And what I'd like you to do, if you can, is in the comments below is tell me and tell everybody a mistake that you made. Whether it's public or not, just a mistake that you made in the past that you're not proud of, and if you could really expand upon how you got past it, would be awesome if you're able to do that. But please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss any future episodes. And you can always reach me at mike@gardinalifecoaching.com, and visit the website at gardinalifecoaching.com. And we look forward to you on the next video. Thanks.